Welcome to the Coach Bryan Moore Show. I'm Margaret Ann Praytor, alongside Coach Bryan Moore. And just to remind you, this is going to be a weekly broadcast. It's going to be dropped every Wednesday and aired on Facebook, YouTube, and the NFHS Network. Also, just a reminder, please tune in every Friday to the NFHS Network for our video broadcast. And then if you want audio only, go to hartsellfootball.com. So before we begin, we got to thank our sponsors, Coach. Eddie Pruitt Ford, Bentley's at the Outhouse Life Church, and Quorum's Building and Farm Center. Coach, let's just start with an obvious question from last week. Can you imagine how good these guys would be if they could play 48 minutes of consecutive football?
I can't imagine. I'm ready to see it myself. We've got to figure out how to do that, and that's part of growing up. Consistency is. It was funny. We talk about the JV games and ninth grade games a lot, and when you watch those games, the hard part to watch is that you have a good play, 2-3 plays in a row, and then you have a couple bad ones, and that's just youth. Youth is inconsistent. If you go to a small peewee game or whatever, it's just all over the place. Because again, to be a well-oiled machine, they need to play together for a long time. They need to have experience, and we're knocking on the door of it, but we're just not quite there yet.
That's understandable. You got a young team. Let's look at the Russellville game. It's a sluggish start, 7-0 at the end of the first quarter, and honestly, it was almost 14-0. They stopped a guy from Russellville at the 1. What adjustments did you make to start moving the ball after that?
Well, I think we had 4 or 5 possessions in the first half. I think 4, and 3 of them were really good offensively. But defensively, we let them run north and south, and we didn't spill things. The difference is basically when you spill it, you put your guys in the middle of the formation and you spill the ball out to linebackers, outside linebackers, corners, and safeties. And we didn't do a very good job of that, because when the ball's moving laterally, that's a good thing. It'll be a really good thing this Friday night if we can make that happen. But we just didn't do that. We didn't take on blocks the correct way, and those little things we didn't do well. And so there were some adjustments, but most of it again was a technique thing. It was not it wasn't a front thing. There were some changes personnel wise, but not a bunch. We just had to play our technique and do our jobs.
Coleman Mizell got his first touchdown this week. You've talked about rooting for him, waiting on him to make that first big catch. What can you tell me about that?
Well, he needed it. He's been struggling, and for Bull, it's always been he's just better than everybody else. He's a kid that when you look at him, he's 6'2", 6'3", and weighs 210 pounds, and runs well and is strong. Jump out of the gym, dunk a basketball when he's in the 7th grade. He just is. He's a special athlete, and but football's different. Football. When he started kind of flirting with the idea of playing. I called his mom and dad and basically said, we'll take care of him best we can. I know he's a big-time player. He's obviously a Division I baseball, an SEC baseball player at Alabama, and he's going to be really, really good in those sports. But football is just different, and it's been a struggle for him. I brought him into my office a couple of different times because I can tell he's very emotional. Insofar as when he drops a ball, you can he's flailing in arms, and I'm like, you gotta stop doing that. It's okay. It's okay. Move on to the next play. And so he's a positive reinforcement kid, right? And so, it's funny. It's kind of like the kids' love language. You kind of have to learn them too, And, I can't bark at him a whole lot. And so we just continued to push and, put things on him at practice, give him extra chances, and finally made a huge play. And really, I think it was a play of the game.
You kind of make me feel bad. I've been picking at him in sports marketing. I better dial it back a little bit. Yeah. Receiving core, 330 yards. While you're talking about him, let's talk about our Eddie Pruitt Ford player of the game. You got Trent Wright, 180 yards and a touchdown, and that's as a slot receiver.
Yeah, when I do the stats every week, I actually do them after midnight every Friday. I can't sleep anyway, so I go ahead and do the stats. And so, as I was looking at it, I thought, he really needs to make more catches, because up until that game, he and Rye Fletcher, Isaiah's been kind of far and away the leader in that category. But I thought Trent needed more touches. And they gave us some opportunities in the middle of the field, the way that they pressured us to get Trent going. And we did in many ways. Matter of fact, not only did he have 180 yards, he also had like a 35-yard catch taken away because of a penalty.
That's right.
So he would have had 220 yards, somewhere in that range. That's unbelievable. And then the 85-yard touchdown reception was huge for us, and a dynamic play. We've been looking for those. We haven't had a lot of those. It's been tough offense. It's been a grinded out type mentality. We have to execute at a high level. But when you get some of those cheap ones, those 85-yarders, that's when the game changes, and that's what happened Friday. But he's doing a great job. He's still learning. I mean, really, he's playing so he's like a freshman out there. He hasn't played, not in big-time varsity football games, especially on the road. For him to do that was huge for us.
Well, and then his leadership on the field, right? He's good at lining guys up, and
well, he's got all these puppies around him, and they're learning, and we do a lot too now. I mean, as far as offensive, we move those guys to all kind of positions, and which was a huge asset for us Friday because Isaiah had a hard time getting open on that number 5. Their corner is a really good player, Division I player, in my opinion. He's a 6'3" corner that can run. And Zay had a hard time with him, so we moved him over. And so then, he's playing number 3 receiver, number 2 receiver. He's also the boundary receiver, but Trent's helping, with those guys because really the other 3 guys were Eli Tidwell, who's a sophomore, Coleman Mizell, who's a sophomore, and then Isaiah, who's a sophomore. So Trent has got to be the guy that, maybe he hadn't played football, but he's played big-time basketball.
Right.
He's played in regionals and huge basketball games, and there's something about that pressure and playing in front of all those people that he can handle. And so the game is not too fast for him. And again, he's a huge leader for us.
He doesn't look like he's afraid of contact either. So
he's not. He's running through it. I told him I put championship plays on the board on Sunday. Basically, we go through a list of good and bad, and his was on there. So, dude, I didn't know you had those wheels, man. That was huge. He ran away from some people, so I was proud of him.
All right, that's great. We'll be right back after a break. You're watching the Coach Bryan Moore Show.
Hey, football fans, we are so excited to have another year of Hartselle football underway. 2020 season is expecting a great year, and we're so excited about Coach Bryan Moore and his family being here. Coach Moore's a great coach, and he's going to lead us to great things right here in Hartselle, but not only this year, but for years to come. Go Tigers!
And we're here with our Eddie Pruitt Forward Player of the Week, Trent Wright. Trent, I know I'm your favorite teacher and my class is your favorite class, so we're just going to skip over that. Let's just get to the real good questions. It's your senior year. Why did you decide to play football?
Isaac Osteen, a junior on the football team, really talked me into it. He kept at me the whole summer pretty much, just agging on to me about it. And I finally gave in and said I was going to come to one summer practice, and I just kept playing after that.
Oh, that's good. Hey, we're glad to have you. But let's talk about basketball and football together. You basically play 2 thankless positions. I mean, you're our defensive specialist in basketball, you're slot receiver, so that means you're taking shots right over the middle. Do you like the less flashy, more workhorse type roles?
Oh, I just always want to win. Like any team I'm on, I would just love to win. Like I'm just a competitor. I'll do anything to win, honestly.
So it doesn't matter as long as you're contributing.
Yes.
All right, that's great. Do you think diversifying your skills will help you by playing football? Will that help you with basketball?
Yes, I really do. I really do think it will because I'll already be competing and in sports. I mean, having 1,000 people watch you can have a big effect on how well you play and how nervous you get. Also, being a little mentally tougher. I mean, playing a rough sport and then going to basketball, which isn't as rough, will really help my competitive edge.
Great. Everybody loves game day, and I've asked all the guys I've interviewed so far, what's your favorite part of practice?
Definitely live, when we go live, because everyone's competing and just gets hype in practice, and it's towards the end of practice, which everyone's already tired, and everyone just wants to win because whoever loses has to run.
Oh, well, I hadn't heard that yet, so I learned something new. And then what do you want to do when you leave here?
If I can't play college basketball, I'd really like to go to Alabama, try to get into law school there, because law, kind of politics and arguing is kind of my thing.
That'd be great. Roll Tide. All right, thanks for your time, Trent. We appreciate you coming to talk to us. All right, we're back with the Coach Bryan Moore Show. Coach JT Blackwood got the start this week. He was 14 of 25, 261 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. But I want to talk a little bit about Parker Sawyer. He came in and got that go-ahead touchdown and seemed like once he did, it was downhill for us from there.
Yeah, I mean, he's an experienced guy. We don't have many of those. So he is a calming factor. He's very quiet, poised. He's a really good football player. And he's a vet. He'd been there just a year ago. We went to Russellville last year at Jasper and played on the road almost a year to the day. And there's some comfort, with that. And we had won 31-0 last year. And so he was comfortable in the scenario. And, we asked him to run far more than I did last year with him. But the reason is because he's a very good athlete. He's a big athlete. I mean, 6'3", 200 pounds. I think he's a next level player. And so again, he was coming off a week with an injury. And so we eased him back into the game, and you'll see more of him this Friday. But those two guys really complement each other well. They can both do, they can run all of our offense. But they also bring different skill sets to the table, and so that makes us even more multiple.
Well, and has it been a healthy competition between the two?
I think they're great. I mean, again, both of them are getting reps. I mean, it's not, would they like to play 60 plays in a game? Sure. Hopefully all your kids do. But they understand. I mean, both of them are good enough to win. I said it from week 0, right there when we played Austin. Both kids are good enough to win, and we're starting to see that balance come through.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the 90 yards rushing. So it seemed like kind of Russellville had our number with that.
Overloading in there, I mean, that's what they want to do. They're going to make you throw it, and the 4 teams besides us couldn't do it, and so you just got to take what the defense gives you. Again, if I'm in a perfect world for me, as far as, our balance, I want to rush for 200 and throw for 200. That's a perfect night. At a minimum 150, like I talk about.
Right.
But we're just, not very experienced up there. We're having a hard time getting push. We're better, way better than we were, 5 weeks ago. But at the same time, we got to take what they give us. I mean, we can't, keep hammering the ball in there, even though I think we have good backs. And like I said, I think we've got a good offensive line that's coming along. But when people put 7 guys in there, it's tough to run with 6, and so we're going to continue to flip that thing around until they soften the box, and then we'll create box numbers. And because that's the whole deal in football. If you can count, you can call plays in football, right? I mean, if you know how many are in there and you can't block them all, then don't run it in there, And so we've also equated the numbers with our quarterback too. That's why we run him on some stretch plays. And Moogie's such a great blocker that we put him in front of specifically Parker. He's a little better runner than JT. And so we've been able to get those equated numbers that way. And but, again, we want to run it for 150, but when you can throw it for 330, when they're not giving you that, then I think that's okay too.
12% rule. Now that you told me about that, I'm going to ask about it.
I'm glad you keep me accountable.
It's at 19%. Are you concerned about that, or was that because of better competition?
Well, we had some snap things. We had a high snap where JT fell. We had a negative 10-yard play. That's part of the rushing issue too. We had a fumbled snap for Parker where he was going to run outside zone with Rye, and that was in the minus 10-yard play. We had to follow it. And then we had a ball that bumped, kind of glanced off our fullback's shoulder. They're trying to get in there tight to split flow to the backside of the play. I said, well, baby, you got to let the thing fly through there first. I mean, you can't, I've got to be aware. It's just like a motion guy. We tell them it's their job not to hit the ball because we run a lot of jet motion with Bull and some of those guys. So with all that, I think that created 3 of the negative plays. When you put that into 61 or so total plays, plus a penalty, plus a pick, I think you create 19%. But all of that happened early. I mean, I would love to see that number from the last drive of the first half on. I bet it was very, very small. So again, that number is sometimes deceiving. I mentioned a couple weeks ago that we won an 8-7 game years ago, and we had like 11%, but we scored 8 points. You know what I mean? So sometimes that number can be a little bit deceiving, but our negative plays and that turnover were huge in that number.
All right. Thanks, Coach. We'll be right back after a break. You're watching the Coach Bryan Moore Show.
It's rolling. What's it?
Hey Hartselle, I'm Emily Foster, and this is what's happening at Hartselle High School. So it's been 4 years since the class of 2021 started high school, which feels like it was literally just yesterday. So I wanted to talk to them and get their opinion on their senior year, what all they've been through, and what they've learned over the past 4 years. First up, I'm starting off with the drum major, Emma Ballou. Why did you decide to be the drum major?
Once I joined band, I kind of knew that's what I wanted to do just because I saw other people doing it. And I really love the band, and I thought it would be a good way to lead the band.
How does it feel to be it this year?
I really like that I've been able to do it as my senior year thing, just because everybody says get involved as much as possible, and we've been able to have a lot of fun this year.
Next, I spoke with the yearbook editor, Savannah Bradford. What do you think the most important thing about high school is?
Probably just to be yourself. Don't try to act like something completely different just to impress upperclassmen or older people, because that doesn't matter. They're going to be gone in a few years anyway.
What do you think is important about the yearbook?
Probably just all the memories inside of it. There's a backstory to every single picture on the page, and like you can't find that kind of stuff in other things.
Since the first day of school, do you think you've changed much?
I think I have. I've had to discipline myself to get a better work ethic, because since I'm not at school every day, I have to really have that motivation and self-discipline to do my work.
If you could give a piece of advice to any freshman, what would you say?
I would definitely say enjoy it, because it goes by very, very fast.
What do you think the most important thing about high school is?
The most important thing about high school is probably the friendships you make and the relationships you grow with people.
If you could pick one moment in the past 4 years to relive, what would it be?
Probably sophomore football season. We were 10-0, I think it was, and it was just a really good feeling to be together and connected and winning.
Do you have a favorite Hartselle High School teacher?
Senior year would be Coach Wright, but last year would be Jack Napier.
If you could relive any moment in the past 4 years, what would it be?
Last year, the day we got out for Corona would be one day I would go back to, just to know that was my last time seeing some of the teachers that I had.
Who has been your favorite Hartselle High School teacher?
My favorite Hartselle High School teacher has been Kevin Shivers. He's not here anymore, but he made a big impact on my life.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned over the past 4 years?
To not care what people think about you and just live and be happy. Yeah, just don't care.
Do you have any advice to give to the freshmen?
My advice would be to definitely get involved with a lot of clubs, and if they play sports, fully be involved with their sports team.
What's your favorite thing about high school?
My favorite thing about high school is the friendships I've made with people here.
What advice would you give to freshmen?
This might be the opposite of what some people say, but for me, I feel like if you try to do too much, it can get really stressful, because high school's already pretty hard.
Yeah, I agree with Elijah on that. The worst thing to do is just to be stressed all the time. You're only gonna be young once, so you guys gotta live your life.
So how do you think being involved in sports affected your high school?
I definitely lost a lot of sleep because I have to wake up super early.
I don't agree on that, but also being around those guys, just building friendships, and also a confidence booster if you're really shy and you get to be around everybody and kind of hype you up a little bit.
And so you were involved in a lot of clubs and activities, so why did you decide to be a part of that, and how did it affect your high school time?
So I really figured that the best way to get the most out of high school was to be involved in as much as possible. And I'm really passionate about a lot of things that clubs are doing, like chorus and Key Club and SGA. And then I also helped start our school speech and debate team, which was a ton of fun, really stressful, but a ton of fun. Yes, it's helped me with scholarships in college and stuff, but then also it's helped me grow a lot as a person.
If you could pick one moment in the past 4 years to relive, what would that moment be?
It would probably be quarantine. That was the only time in the past 4 years where I had no stress at all. I didn't have to worry about anything, so I could really focus on myself.
What do you think the most important thing about high school is?
I think it's getting to know other people outside of, your own grade, your own circle.
So those are all the seniors I decided to interview. If I could answer one of those questions for myself, it would probably be, what is the most important thing about high school? And for me, the most important thing about high school, and I've learned it also applies to everyday life, is having the mindset of constantly growing, constantly bettering yourself. So the seniors are already getting ready to graduate. They're trying to make the most of these last few months in high school. I'm Emily Bolster, and that's what's happening at Hartselle High School.
All right, Coach, let's talk about defense now. They seemed to struggle with Russellville's run game in the beginning, but then y'all made some personnel adjustments. Because I kept hearing number 1 being called over and over, and then you never heard from him again. So what happened?
Well, I think, again, it was a technique thing first and foremost. But what we did, Coach Bray did a great job of adjusting those guys and moved EJ into nose, which we had talked about that matchup. We liked that matchup. Part of the 3-man front that I've always liked, and even from several years at other places, is that it's real multiple in that you can move guys around and match them up with people, because a lot of times you're playing a true head-up technique, right? So, for example, if you're a four-man front, even front, then you're going to be shaded on a guy, right? Typically, you're going to be shaded outside shoulder, inside shoulder on a person. But when you're in a three-man front, a lot of times you're head up those guys, which gives you a two-way go, and you're looking for matchups, because a lot of times it's single blocks. If you can create those single blocks, and we felt like Russell was giving us that a little bit. And so we worked that matchup with EJ at nose, and then we moved Seth out to end. And the thing about Seth I want to brag on is Seth is a Hartselle kid, right? So he was raised, by Coach Bray in football. You know what I mean?
Right.
From the time he was a freshman, Coach Bray's been his position coach for 4 years. And there's something about that, the trust and the technique that a guy like that can play from the time he played freshman ball and JV ball all the way up to varsity, that can really, really help. And he went in there and played really good technique, spilled the ball. And then you didn't hear from that guy anymore.
No.
And so, again, I got to give it to Coach Newton and Coach Bray. And, at halftime of that game, I was concerned that we were, that they were running the ball, but it wasn't a scheme thing. I didn't go and say, we got to change fronts, or we got to, blitz more, or whatever. They know what they're doing. Those guys are vets, and Coach Newton and his staff is as good as I've been around defensively. And so I knew they'd get it right, and they adjusted, and it was perfect.
I didn't even turn my sheet over. Armadio Duncan, let's talk about him. Pick 6. It's his first start.
Right. Mario is a kid that needed that. He needed the confidence of that. Mario had a health deal go on. He missed a week or two, and then he came back to us, and he's kind of trying to find his way. He's a junior that's behind some of those sophomore receivers. And so we said, look, this kid's too good of an athlete to stand over here with me. He's not getting any playing time. So we slid him over to defense, and then his sort of mentality of, running and catching the football paid off. I mean, and then he broke on it just like a receiver would, and stuck it, and then off he went. And I was really proud of that kid.
That was good. It was fun to see. I know Trent Wright's our player of the game, but we got to talk about 2 of our former players of the game. You got Kelvin Morris with 15 tackles. Isaac Osteen had 10, but we don't want to forget our DBs. Caleb Goodwin, fumble recovery. And then, I got to talk about my sports marketing kid, Tevin Shields. He had 8 tackles.
Yeah, I mean, they're highly productive. There were a lot of tackles out there that ran the ball a lot, and so when that happens, the team is heavy run, you get a lot of tackles out of that. And Kelvin just continues to have the highest motor of any D lineman I've ever been around, literally. He plays so hard, and he's so violent, with his hands, and the way that he strikes people and punches people. And, those are technique things, the way he locks them out. He just is, you could tell that he's been taught that, and you could tell that he takes that and keeps his shoulders square. And there was a finish to that game where there was a 3-play segment where he made all 3 tackles. It was the last 3 plays for Russell. He made all 3 tackles in different ways. He's just extremely dynamic. He's a big time player. And then of course, Caleb continues to, I can't believe it. I'm in disbelief that a freshman does what he does every day. And he's a great player, great kid, and who's really, really coming on. And Tevin Shields is a guy that had 8 solo tackles and really has tackled people in the open field, and he didn't do that a year ago. So much so that we played Coleman, he was the edge setter for us, which is a big deal. That meaning that you're going to take on guards, and you're going to take, because that's kind of their scheme and what they get you into. But when we were choosing, we chose Tevin, and a year ago he never would have been able to do that. So he's come along so much, and he made a huge open field tackle on 3rd and 13, saved a touchdown Friday. So you can't pick a better person. Like, he's a great human being, and I'm just proud of the way that Tevin has come along, and his toughness and his leadership. He's been asked to be in a role that he wasn't a year ago, and now he needs to lead our team, and he does.
We hope to get him in here as one of our Eddie Pruitt Ford players of the game soon. We're going to take a quick break. You're watching the Coach Bryan Moore Show.
Hey, welcome to Billy's.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon.
All right, we're back with the Coach Bryan Moore Show. Margaret Ann Praytor alongside Coach Bryan Moore. Injury report. I think we made it through a game without anybody getting hurt.
Yeah, we got to finish through this week. But we feel good about that, our health. Obviously we miss Peyton
Right.
badly, and we do. And the way that he was coming on, and now we're sort of, having to play a lot of different kids in that role that Peyton could kind of do all of them. And a lot of new faces over there, and that's what we call the spur, which is a field outside linebacker. So we miss him. But yeah, we're healthy, and we need to stay that way.
Well, and then let's talk about Athens. You're traveling to Athens. They're 3-2. Only common opponent that I could find in my research, Columbia. They beat them 50-6. You beat them 50-0. Let's go through a quick scouting report. I hear they're pretty tough.
They're really good. They're old. So overview of their team, they got around 30 seniors, most of which have experience. They have around 20 starters that are seniors. There are only a couple kids that aren't seniors that are starting on their football team. This is their year. I mean, it is. And but we just got done beating a really experienced team too. So I'm proud of that. At some point, as the season continues to tick on, that experience doesn't add up as much as it maybe did, like for us against Austin.
Right.
With all their vets, it's not as bad at that point because we're playing a lot too. We're playing a lot of reps now as well. But they've got an experienced team. They've got a really good team. They're very well coached. Offensively, they're extremely explosive. The quarterback from last year, to me, was the most explosive kid last year, but now he's not, which is wild. They moved a safety over to play running back, and he's as dynamic as anybody we've seen, including the Austin running back, who I think is really, really good, and then, of course, the kid from Coleman. But this guy can score from anywhere on the field. He's had over 200 yards rushing in both of the last 2 games. And they give it to him, and they ride him, and he, I don't know, he's just explosive. They scored 30 and 49 or something like that in the last 2 games. They're averaging about 40 over the last 2 games, and most of it is because of him. They got 2 really dynamic receivers. One is long and rangy. The other one's shorter, more of a slot guy. They're not real diverse in their passing game, but they don't beat themselves. That's the deal, is that, they don't have to do too much because they're so explosive. They can run quarterback stretch, and he can take it to the house, or they can just hand it off, and he'll go score it.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
It's not, and they just don't have to. They don't have to be that. They can. Again, they're well coached. They've got some things and some tricks that they've run, but they just don't have to do much. And then defensively, they're just old, and it's a different look than we're used to seeing. It's a sort of a monster look where they have 3 down linemen, and then they'll have a Mike linebacker sitting right behind the nose, and then another sort of stack backer offset. It's just different, but it's fun. Like scouting that is fun, and scheming that is fun. Like if you only saw the same thing, it kind of gets a little bit monotonous. So it's fun to go over and walk through with the kids and install, and this is how we're running, and this is what guy we're blocking. Because of this look, that's what's fun about coaching. The scout is what's fun. So, but they're really good. I don't know if they're the best team we've played, but they're right there close. I think they're every bit as good as Coleman. Very different, but every bit as good. But I think we're better too.
Well, and just a positive note, when they did score 49, they allowed the other team to score 40. So it was back and forth the whole time. So and Muscle Shoals was close, but they've won 2 close games.
Right.
4 of our last 5 regular season games are away. So what adjustments are you having to make game planning wise? Is this a positive for your team?
Well, we're 2-0 on the road. So first, that gives me a little comfort that, and both of the teams we played are somewhat rivals. Have history playing Hartselle. Obviously, Decatur is, but even Russellville, a big history there playing. So there's something to play for, kind of a known enemy, I guess. But when we travel, we get there pretty early when we go, so that I think that kids kind of settle in. I think if you sort of pull up, get off the bus, start pregame, and then play, I don't think you ever kind of work the jitters out. But we go, we have meetings there. We just want to get comfortable in our surroundings. And I've always done it that way. Now, traveling, as we mentioned last week, is a whole new dynamic right now. But, we're pretty comfortable on the road. The COVID era has sort of lessened the crowd too, even the band sizes, right? So it's not as loud. So there's not a lot of silent snap count and that sort of thing. So that helps us on the road as well. But we enjoy going places. That's fun to go and experience a game in somebody else's field, and to win one on the road. Those are really, those are hard to come by, because before the Decatur game, we hadn't won a road game since Coach Gozzi was here.
Oh, wow.
And so that was a big win for us, and now hopefully that'll just become our thing, is that we can go on the road and it doesn't bother us, and we can just play.
Well, and you got the young team that it doesn't bother because they don't know.
They don't know any
different.
better, do they?
Exactly. Let's look at our Eddie Pruitt Ford fan question of the week. Last week's show, you said you were a very routine person. So what's a normal routine day look like for Coach Moore?
Well, the way we practice in the morning, I am routine. Probably, like I mentioned, almost to a fault, not flexible in change and adapting and stuff like that. And this has made me much more flexible. So, I guess my favorite day is Friday, because on Monday through Thursday, we go so early that I don't get to do a lot at home. Like Lindsay, thank goodness she's who she is, but she gets them ready, all three boys, and it's wild, man. I mean, they're 9, 7, and 4, and whoa, it's just a lot. It's just a lot. A lot of parents out there know that.
I do.
But it's just a lot to get them all ready and everything, and their personalities. And so on Fridays, I get to take them, and I enjoy that. I enjoy taking them to school, and they just blah, 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 the whole time in the back of the truck, and they're just wearing me out. But I enjoy it. I really try and enjoy that because, it's so funny. We went through the whole quarantine thing. You sort of got used to being home and with them. And then now I miss them, and so when I'm with them, I appreciate it more. It almost made you numb to the fact that you were actually with them, when you're in quarantine, like, good grief, I need to get out of this house. But I take them on Fridays and we go through, and I get to take them all through their car line and everything. And my Fridays, mostly we eat breakfast. Our lunch ladies do that for us, and that's huge. Usually biscuits and gravy, that's what we like. So they fix that for us on Friday mornings. And I go through and try and watch film at the same time. And I have a couple classes and stuff. I have personal fitness stuff, and I try and run and work out with them. I think that's good for you. Obviously on game day to kind of, sort of reset your body a little bit too. And then I try and steal every minute that I can, because I watch film up through almost game time, because I think you never have seen enough. People say that you can study too much or do too much. I don't agree with that. Like, I think that the more you look at it, the more comfortable you get with what you're about to see. And it's just like studying for a test. When I watch that film, I'm studying for that test I had when I was at Auburn or whatever, that just I'm going through it. And even when I'm on the bus ride, I take my computer in a MiFi box and I watch film again just one more time if there's anything I hadn't seen. Because when you look at film, we've got every game of these people all year. So you're talking as many as 500 defensive clips, and I can't remember them all, so I'm constantly going through them. And so we are creatures of habit. We get at the stadium the same time and go through Friday. So, but yeah, I am extremely routine, and again, it probably drives Lindsay crazy.
Well, I thank you so much for your time and the insight. We'll be back next week with the Coach Bryan Moore Show.
Hey, football fans, we are so excited to have another year of Hartselle football underway. 2020 season is expecting a great year, and we're so excited about Coach Bryan Moore and his family being here. Coach Moore's a great coach, and he's going to lead us to great things right here in Hartselle, but not only this year, but for years to come. Go Tigers!